Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. So today we will look into a data collection method. So in data collection method, we have several methods available in statistics and STA 404. We will focus on observation. There are observation, interview, questionnaire, and database. So this is a method of data collection. So if you want to do observation, means that you need to go and make observation of the situation, right? Means that if you are doing experiment, so you need to do observation with what is the change of behavior, right? Apa dia punya perubahan setiap satu benda, you boleh pantau dekat situ lah. And then another type of data collection is interview, right? Means face-to-face interview, focus group. You have a group of people, and then you make a interaction. Means you interview one to one, right? Another method is using a questionnaire. Means that you have a set of question, right? Means that you want to ask about, let's say for example, a knowledge, attitude and practice on dengue fever prevention. So you have a set of question regarding knowledge on dengue fever prevention, attitude of dengue fever prevention and practice. So you distribute to people, right? And then people will answer, people means the respondent lah. Respondent will answer the question without interfere of the interviewer lah, without any interviewer or question and answer session. So just respondent will answer on the questionnaire, right? And database. So this is secondary data. Means that you collect the data from any database or any publishable media lah, right? So this is a secondary data. So first three data collection, this is what we call as a primary data collection. Right, so we have a primary data collection and secondary data collection. So now let's look at in detail on data collection method for primary data. So for primary data, this is for a primary data. Right, so in primary data, as I said, we have a direct questionnaire. Means direct questionnaire, we distribute the questionnaire to the respondent and collect personally without any interfere of the interviewer lah. So interviewer dia tak tanya soalan langsung kat situ kan. So just bagi questionnaire, then minta respondent jawab and fill in the form, right? So that one is a direct questionnaire lah. Another one is a direct observation. If you have an experiment, right? So you want to know, let's say, you induce some drug dalam mice kan. Contoh, you ada dua group of mice, right? So you bagi drug A and drug B dekat mice group A and group B. So you want to see how many black dot on mice punya brain kan. So that is based on observation, right? Another one is you join the community, you look at the changing of the behavior of the community, right? So that is one of the example kan. So another method is telephone interviews. Oh, this is quite common, right? So for example, let's say after you go for purchasing a new car, for example, after you buy a new car, so there will be a after service sales kan. After service sales maksudnya sales contact service center akan call you, tanya berkenaan dengan satisfaction of the new car, satisfaction of the service, right, and so on lah. So this is a phone interview. So this is quite common nowadays. And face-to-face interview is a personal interview, right? Means that you meet a respondent face-to-face and you ask a question face-to-face and waiting the respondent to answer the question. And the less effective method, but still reasonable, right, is a postal or mail questionnaire. Means that you send a questionnaire through mail, right? And we wait the respondent to post it back to you, right? So, but normally the response rate is quite low, but still people are doing this, right? Questionnaire are sent via postal or mail, right? Another method is email, video recording. Nowadays we have internet, SurveyMonkey, Facebook, social media, and so on. So this is a technological method, right? So technological method is widely used nowadays, right, for data collection method. So all of these method is lies under primary data collection, right? For secondary data collection is you are taking the data from publishable source, right? In newspaper, in magazine, in website, right? In database, right? So nowadays dah banyak kan dalam website kan. We have a Kaggle website, we have in Department of Statistics Malaysia, Malaysia Rubber board, right? Semua tu provide a good data, right, for you to do analysis. So now, since you want to know, since you have decided what kind of data collection method, right? So let's say if you want to do a primary data collection method, so then you need to decide what is your sampling techniques. How are you going to collect the data, right? So this is a method of collecting the data, either questionnaire, interview, and so sampling technique is how what is type of respondent yang you nak ambil. You nak ambil respondent tu kat mana? Suka-suka hati distribute the questionnaire ke? Ataupun you have a strategy to select a respondent as your part of the studies. Right? So now, sampling techniques. Kita tengok dia punya topik, sampling techniques. Sampling is a process of selecting a portion of a population. So we have a population and we take a sample. Why we take a sample? Why don't we take all members in the population? Because of several issues, such as we don't have manpowers to collect all members in the population. Maybe the population is too large, right? So we need to save time. We don't have much money to distribute, right? We want to basically we want to save time, and we don't have power to collect all respondent in the population, right? So that's why we do sample, right? So sample can save time, cost, and resource, right? So it reduces the sampling errors, right? So we need to have a sampling strategy. This is what we want to learn now, right? Means a sampling method. So by using a sampling method, it will reduce a sampling error. It means that we will reduce the bias of selection the respondent, right? So it will give accuracy to the sample result. That's why we need to have a strategy to select a sample, right? So when result of the study are required in short time lah, so means that it save time. Same sama dengan 1 dengan 4 ni lebih kurang sama. Right, so in sampling process, first we need to define the population. Right, so this is a sampling process. Bila you nak set your punya strategy of selecting a sample into your study, so you need to know what is your population, right? You know what is the population? Definition of population is all member in area of interest, right? Let's say for example, you want to do a study on knowledge, attitude, and practice, right? Knowledge, attitude, and practice on dengue fever prevention at Perak Tengah District. So your population will be all residents in Perak Tengah District, right? Boleh faham? So you need to understand the population. Let's say kita buat satu example kat sini, right? Let's say kita ambil example yang paling kecil sikit lah. We want to study satisfaction, right, on cafe provider right, at UiTM Tapa, among student at UiTM Tapa lah. At UiTM Tapa, right? So your population will be all student in UiTM Tapa, right? So nampak the magic word is all. Make sure you in final exam, in test, so to define the population, don't forget the word all. You jangan sebut, let's say satu in one statement kan, dalam problem statement dia beritahu, we have 5,000 students, right? We want to select 300 students, for example. Ni problem statement, real case. So what is the population in this statement? So you bukan letak 5,000 student, you kena letak the word all students in UiTM Tapa. That is the keyword lah. That is a correct answer kan. So now, once you already identify your population, so let's say your capital N is equal to 5,000, right? So then you need to establish a sampling frame. So a sampling frame is a list of all members in the population. I already discussed this one previously. A list of all members in the population, right, consists of their information such as name, student ID, related to their nature lah. Student ID, phone number, right, program, right, semester, right, and so on lah. So related to their nature. So sampling frame is required. This is a sampling frame is required when you want to collect a data using a randomized sampling techniques, right? If you are using non-randomized sampling techniques, then you don't need to worry about sampling frame. Please aware of this. So once you already establish a sampling frame, first kita define the population, establish a sampling frame, then we need to determine the sample size. So let's say sample size basically you need to calculate kan. Later on in chapter interval of estimation, nanti kita akan belajar how to calculate the sample size, right? So for example, you want to select out of 5,000, you want to select let's say 50 student, for example. So you want to select n equal to 50. This is a sample, right? You want to select as 50. So you want to select 50 sample unit, right? So you want to select 50 sampling unit, right? So let's say kita ambil n equal to 50. Then after we determine the sample size, we need to specify the sampling method. So the sampling method, when you are having a sampling frame, then automatically it will be a probabilistic sampling technique, right? Kalau tak perlu kan, kalau you don't have a sampling frame, right, so it's going to be a non-probabilistic sampling technique. So how to get the sampling frame? Sampling frame usually can get when you have very small population. If you have a very large population, for example, study yang I sebut tadi, a knowledge, attitude and practice on dengue fever prevention at Perak Tengah District. So at Perak Tengah District, maybe you have 100,000 residents, and some of the residents are not there already. Sometimes some of them have been migrated to others district or state kan. So to get the whole list of name is quite impossible. Tapi you boleh dapat juga dengan daripada senarai pendaftar kan, pilihan raya kan, SPR. But as I said, some of them might not be there already. Some of them might migrated to others state or district. Kan? So it's hard to get a full sampling frame. So the probabilistic sampling method might not be first choice. But however, we have another method, some of the method in probabilistic sampling technique, later on kita akan belajar, that can be employed for the large situation or large population. So now let's look at this one. Kenapa ada garis-garis ni ya? Oh yeah, I forgot. I want you to give me a lecture kan? But don't worry, I give you a lecture. Now, look at this one. Type of sampling techniques. Right? Type of sampling techniques. So we have two types of sampling techniques. First is a non-probabilistic sampling techniques. Another one is probabilistic sampling techniques. So sometimes probabilistic sampling technique is called as a randomized sampling techniques, right? And this one should call as a non-randomized. Benda yang sama lah. Randomized is called as a probabilistic or probability sampling techniques. Non-randomized is a non-probabilistic sampling techniques. So under non-probabilistic sampling techniques, there are several sampling technique that we're going to learn, right, in this topic, in this chapter, right? So basically there are more, but kita akan focus on these four sampling techniques. The first one is convenience sampling techniques, judgmental, snowball, and quarter. For probabilistic sampling technique, we will look into a simple random sampling, systematic sampling, cluster, certified, and multi-stage, right? So as I said just now, for non-probabilistic sampling techniques, the full sampling frame or sampling frame basically is not a requirement lah. It's not a requirement. So we no need to have a sampling frame in non-probabilistic sampling techniques because we're going to select non-randomly. If you want to select randomly, so you need to have a sampling frame. So then you can assign a random number, right? So of course, if you are talking about randomization of sampling, so you need to have a sampling frame. So you need to have a sampling frame, so then you can assign a random number on the each number of respondent dalam population, right? So in a probabilistic sampling techniques, it assures every unit in the population has equal chance of being chosen. So all members in the population have equal chance to be selected as sample, right? So this is probabilistic sampling techniques. But for non-probabilistic sampling techniques, it might introduce a huge bias on selecting the sample. Maybe you have a population here, let's say, right? This is a population. So, I suka bawa ini kan, kejap. You have a lorry of, sekarang musim Ramadan, we have a lorry of kurma, right? This is a lorry, right? Lorry. This is a tingkap driver. This is a steering, right? And then this is tingkap lah, whatever. This is pintu, right? Okay. So dalam ni dia ada banyak kurma, for example lah. For example, we have a lot of dates yang kita beli untuk jual dalam kita punya kedai lah, kita order, right? So once the date sampai tu, so let's say for non-random, maybe you will select satu tempat saja. You will select dekat sini, okay, you test. So maybe this part is a good dates, kan? Dekat sini dates dia bagus, tak ada rotten dates, kan? So maybe dekat dalam ni dia simpan yang rotten dates, kita tak tahu. right? So when you do a non-random sampling techniques, you will select a bias position, right? If you use a random sampling techniques, maybe you will select here, 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 and here. So it's a randomized sampling, right? So for your testing kan. So now let's look at a non-random sampling technique. The first one is convenience. Convenience as a name is convenience. Convenience ni maksudnya convenient lah, very simple, menyenangkan lah. Convenience store, convenience sampling techniques, benda yang sama lah. Right? Means that it's very easy to conduct the sampling. Right? Means that you can select the sample at your suitability. At your suitability. Means that kalau let's say you pergi ke, you ada 100 questionnaire. You want to finish up 100 questionnaire. You go to the cafe, UiTM, let's say you pergi ke pusat pelajar ke alpha or beta or gamma. So you just distribute siapa-siapa saja yang ada dekat cafe tu. Right? So that one is a convenience sampling techniques. So you just distribute suka hati you lah at your suitability. Right? So basically convenience sampling techniques is recommended for pre-testing questionnaire. You want to test whether your questionnaire is work well or not work well. Is reliable or not reliable. You want to test the questionnaire. So that is recommended for pre-testing lah, and getting the idea or insight for forming the hypothesis. It's not very good method for collecting the real data, right? So this is an advantage. Does not require sampling frame, easy to implement, inexpensive. Very simple to implement at your suitability. And disadvantage is it will introduce a bias lah. So maybe orang yang you distribute tu orang yang tak suka dengan service dekat cafe. Very pessimistic people, right? So dia tak suka, semua dia tak suka kan, very negative people. So you akan dapat negative result, right? Instead of the real result represent the whole population, right? Another one is judgmental sampling or judgment sampling. So it based on the judgment of the researcher, based on the prior knowledge, knowledge of researcher. So if researchers thinks that this area is suitable for their data collection, right? So then it based on the judgmental of the researcher. Researcher yang tetapkan dia punya tempat nak buat nak collect data. Or let's say one of the survey that I buat dulu adalah perception of cigarette. The taste of cigarette kan. So dulu I buat bukan taste of cigarette, dia punya gambar tu, apa tu, dia branding of cigarette box kan. So let's say kalau kita pergi tengok, oh this one kita nampak dia macam tak isap rokok, so tak payah tanya. So kita tengok orang ni, oh nampak macam isap rokok, so then kita bagi soalan, right? That is based on judgmental lah, prior knowledge. So the researcher select a respondent whom he feel pose a certain characteristic that represent the population of interest based on their experience. So this technique is used when a limited number of category of people have information of that sort lah. So the advantage is less time consuming, less expensive, sample guaranteed to meet specific objective. As disadvantage sama juga dengan convenience sampling techniques, introduce bias, right? So now let's look at quota sampling techniques. Quota is similar to convenience, but it has the number of sample is selected up to the researcher choice. For example, let's say you want to select, let's say tadi kita letak n equal to 50. So you want to select two group, right? And male and female. So you want to select female 25, male 25, right? So you are setting the quota. So using a convenience sampling techniques, you cari 25 lelaki dan 25 wanita untuk fill in the questionnaire. Right? Once dah cukup kuota, dah you berhenti tak buat dah. Right? So the researcher select predetermined number of individual from different classes of population, usually different age, gender and occupation. So the advantage here is does not require a sampling frame, save cost and effort and time lah, right? Because it under quarter sampling techniques, it employ a convenient sampling. Right, still employ convenience method means that you add your suitability, you cari 25 male, 25 female to fill in the questionnaire. Right, so the sample may not be totally representative lah. It's a will introduce bias. Sama juga, semua benda yang sama. Introduce bias, introduce bias, introduce bias. And snowball, the last sampling non-random sampling techniques. Snowball, dia sama juga. Sometimes we start at random. Sometimes we use a convenience sampling techniques at your convenience. So an initial group of respondent is selected. And for example, you ada buat kajian yang very rare, right? Maybe people on the community, in the group or in persatuan, right? So you will pick one person or one respondent randomly. For example, this is one of the method, and then you based on the recommendation of the respondent to recommend another respondent, and this respondent number 2 will also recommend another respondent number 3. Right, based on the snowball, based on the chain of the introducer, right? So maksudnya dia based on introducer lah. So people number 1 ni will introduce people number second respondent or third respondent, and third respondent dia akan berkembang lah. It's like a pyramid punya representative. But this is what we call as a referral or snowball sampling. Another name is a referral sampling. So after being interviewed, these respondents are asked to identify others who belong to targeted population of interest. Right? The procedure ends until required number of respondents is obtained. So benda yang sama, but it quite sometimes susah juga untuk dapat introducer kan. So now advantage is estimate rare characteristics, so very rare situation, right? Sebab dia mesti dalam satu cycle, satu circle yang group tu sahaja yang ada, right? Maksud dalam persatuan ke, dalam satu community yang kecil, specific community, right? And disadvantage, very time consuming, hard to find the respondent. Sample is not selected randomly, based on the introducing. Based on the previous respondent punya suggestion lah, right? Okay, so that is basically for non-random sampling techniques. Basically, it's very easy. All the disadvantages are same, bias of selection, right? But it based on your suitability lah. Very simple to conduct and not suitable for a real data collection, right? So for data pre-testing of the questionnaire is okay lah, to test or to get some ideas of from the respondents. Now let's look at randomized sampling techniques. Okay, randomized sampling techniques, we will look into the first one. And this is a very fundamental and very important sampling techniques, which is a simple random sampling. Simple random sampling or SRS, right, is randomized sampling techniques, right. Dia kata dekat sini, kita tengok right. Each element in the population will have the same chance of being selected as sample. Means that tadi kita ada population and we have a sampling frame, let's say 1 until 5,000, right? Number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and so on lah. So each member dekat sini dekat sini will have 1 over 5,000 chance of being selected. This is also 1 over 5,000 chance. Semua ni sama, 1 over 5,000 chance of being selected, right? Probability of being selected are same, right? So must have a complete sampling frame, right? So to use simple random sampling, you need to have a complete list of sampling frame, right? So without a complete list of sampling frame, you cannot conduct simple random sampling, right? Because we're going to assign a random number for each. We're going to use a random number to select the sampling unit from the sampling frame. So SRS or simple random sampling is most appropriate when if the population is homogeneous and the population size is not too large. So many people confuse the word random, right? So sometimes dia kata dia pergi kat cafe, dia nak collect a data, right? Distribute a questionnaire. So let's say cafe ni dia macam ni bentuk dia ada banyak table, right? For example kan, this is very small cafe. Let's say this one ada 2 orang, 4 orang lah duduk sini. Right? Ni tak ikut SOP kan, duduk lagi 1 orang. Duduk ramai-ramai. So I nak demonstrate the misunderstanding. So kata dia baru masuk dekat sini, okay, this is a pintu masuk. Dia masuk, okay, dia kata this is they want to distribute a questionnaire. So dia pergi ke the first person, dia bagi questionnaire. And then suka hati dia pergi ke second person, dia bagi questionnaire. Dia pergi ke sini pula, dia bagi questionnaire. Dia pergi ke sini pula, dia bagi questionnaire. And then dia bagi ke sini pula. Dia pergi sini. Dia pergi sini. Oh, suka hati dia. Oh, random. Oh, so this one they claim as random. This is not random. Right? This is not random. This is at your convenience. So this is what we call as convenience sampling techniques. At your convenience. You suka hati distribute ke mana-mana you suka. Right? So make sure you understand the word random and convenience. Right? Random means that semua orang yang ada kat sini, let's say this one we have n equal to 100. So you need to get the list of all people in the cafe from 1 to 100, and then you need to use a random number. Later on kita akan tengok random number to select people using a random number masuk dalam sampling unit. Baru you start collect the data from this sampling unit, right? Okay. So I hope you understand the method, the procedure, right? So you need to have a procedure, very good procedure, not randomly, conveniently distribute the data, the questionnaire. So the method of simple random sampling, also known as a lottery method. How example kita tengok lah. How to choose 3 out of 7 group in using as simple random sampling. So this is another one of the method, which is a lottery method. Tapi kita tak tengok lottery method in this chapter. We will use a random number method. So now, for example, kita tengok sini. Let's say I buat detail sikit kat sini. Saya ulang balik. The procedure of simple random sampling. So you just need to know. First step is we need to define our population. Right? First step is define our population. Our population is all student in UITM TAPA. For example, capital N equal to 5,000. Right? So, and then second step is we need to have a sampling frame. Right, so sampling frame 1, 2, 3, 4 until 10. Let's say I letak 10 lah. This one 10, 11, 21 until 5,000. Right. So next step is, let's say we want to select 10 and equal to 10 sample, 10 respondent out of 5,000. So this is your sampling unit list, right? So to select the sample, you need to base on statistical table. You look at the random number table. So where to get a random number table, you can download from your Google Classroom. I ada letak link kat sini, right? You can download here, right? Random number. So random number page number 36. Right, page number 36. Let's say we go to page number 36. So this is our random number table. Dia ada banyak lah. This is our random number table number 1. This is random number table number 2. And this is random number table number 3. Mana-mana kita nak pakai pun boleh lah. Tak kisah. Let's say I try to copy this one. So random number table. I ambil sikit lah. One of the 3 block lah. 3 kolom. So I letak kat sini. This is the procedure of selecting simple random sampling. So let's say you want to select 10 respondent, 10 sample. So you can start here. Let's say mana-mana tempat you boleh pilih. You nak start sini pun boleh, nak start sini pun boleh, nak start sini pun boleh, ataupun sini pun boleh. Mana-mana point lah. You just point one number dalam random number table. Let's say kita start daripada sini. I guna this one lah. We start from here. So the first one is 13. So 13 akan masuk dalam sampling unit. Will be our sampling unit. So dalam ni of course we have name, student IDs, phone number and so on lah. And then for the next selection, we can go to dekat sini ataupun turun ke bawah. Tapi, you tengok dekat sini, kalau kita ambil 2 number saja dekat sini, we will limit until 99. Right? We will limit until 99 from 0, 1 until 99. So we will ignore 100 until 5,000. Right? So remember our population size, we have 5,000. So to make sure all the member in the population will have equal chance, so we will also consider 4-digit number in sampling a random number table. So we will start from, so let's say kita ambil empat number. So from here, right, 1350. So 1350 will be our first sampling unit in the sample list. So 1350. So members dalam population number 1350 akan jadi first sampling unit. Either kita nak pergi ke sini, ke sini, ke sini, ataupun kita turun ke bawah. For me, better turun ke bawah lah. Senang nampak kan. Let's say I turun macam ni. So, the next random number is 7866. 7866 is beyond 5,000. Should not be in. Tak ada dalam ni. The next one is 5157. Tak ada. 66 tak ada. Okay, next is 1983. So, 1983. So, 1983 should be here. So we will do the same process until we satisfy our sample size. The next one is this one tak ada. Sebab dia semua ni number ni sebesar daripada 5,000 kan. So bila besar daripada 5,000 tak ada lah. This one tak boleh ambil lah. This one yes. 4024. 4024. So masuk dalam sampling unit 4024. Next is 0606. Right, next. So bila dah habis ni, sama ada kita nak move to the next block ataupun to the next numbers, digit dekat sini pun boleh juga. So you boleh pilih lah antara mana you nak masuk kan. So let's say I pilih yang ni This one tak boleh, this one. Right. 2855. So berapa sampel ini kita ambil? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the next one is 3222. And this one tak ada. Cannot. Next is 2569. 3002. Right. And next 4759. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Lagi satu 1625. 1625. So this is 5, 5, 10. So cukup lah. So macam ni kita guna cara untuk select a sampling unit from a population. So what happen kalau kita dah ada selecting the same number, they appear kan. Kalau same number appears, tak payah, you kena ignore lah. Sebab kita dah select dah. Mana boleh select 2 kali. Kan? Right? So this is how we select a sample using a simple random sampling. Any questions so far? Ada soalan? Right. So good. So I hope hopefully you understand how to conduct a simple random sampling. So advantage and disadvantage you can read by yourself later on bila you dapat buku nanti. Right. Advantage is simple random sampling select least bias. Right. Each of population have equal chance of being chosen and easy to implement, minimize possible of classification error. Right. And disadvantage is we require a complete sampling frame. Very unrepresentative sample may result if the population is not homogeneous. What is homogeneous? Maksudnya karakteristik yang tak sama lah. And maksudnya you kena select population you mesti ada karakteristik yang sama. So you don't have any groups, right? Mesti group, dia tak ada group dalam tu. Kalau dia ada group means dia heterogeneous, dia tak sama. So higher cost, time consuming since the experiment may be widespread. So now let's look at the next sampling method, which is systematic sampling method. Systematic sampling method is similar to the simple random sampling, right? But the sampling frame is not really required, right? Not really required, and if you have, it does not require a complete list, right? So then this is not really a full randomized techniques lah. This is a partial randomized techniques, because only the first element or first sampling unit are selected using simple random sampling or randomized sampling techniques. And the next subsequence, the next sample unit are selected using K interval, right? So only the first sampling unit is selected randomly, while the other sampling unit would follow certain interval. K interval. K interval is capital N divided by small letter n. Capital N divided by small letter n. Right. So capital N is a number of population. Number of member is a population. Small letter n is number of sample size. So if K is calculated to be the number of decimal, then the number should be round up. Nampak tak? Dia kata kat sini. To the nearest integer. Let's say you dapat K is equal to 6.2. So it should be equal to 7. 6.5 should be equal to 7. 6.8 should be equal to 7. 6.01 also should be equal to 7. Right? Any decimal value dia kata sini mesti round up. Right? So this is the procedure. Right? You need to understand the procedure. First thing, we need to list down all the unit of the population. Decide on the sample size and calculate the K interval. Right? So once you already calculate the K interval, then we need to select one element randomly. So this is what we call as a partial randomization, or not fully randomization. So the first element is the only sampling unit selected randomly. Right, by using a simple random sampling from 1 until K units in the population. So for example, so 1 until 7. Let's say kita ada 7 kan, K is equal to 7. So we will select randomly members dalam population from number 1 until number 7. For example, let's say I buat balik semula. Let's say I ada list of sampling unit, sampling frame. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 until 5,000. Let's say I have a very full list of sampling unit, a sampling frame. So I'm using a random number. Let's say I ambil 1 until 7, kalau I boleh ambil daripada 1 digit lah. I boleh ambil 1 digit saja. So the first digit I select is 2, for example. So 2 ni akan masuk dalam I punya sampling unit. Right, list of sampling unit 2. The next sampling unit, I tak menggunakan random number table dah. I menggunakan K equal to 7 tu, I akan select respondent number 9. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 7. Right. You select 7 selepas 2. Sama juga dengan ni. Tambah lagi 7, you akan dapat 16. The next one, berapa? Tambah lagi 7. Right? Tambah lagi 7 sampai you habis, sampai you cukup dia punya sampling unit, sample size, satisfy your sample size. Okay? So this is how you construct a systematic sampling unit, assembly techniques. Boleh faham, ha? So that's why the next, after the first sampling unit, yang lain-lain tu dia tak random dah. Dia ikut K interval. So yang selepas 2, 7 tambah 2, 9. 9 tambah 7, 16. 16 tambah 7, berapa? 16 plus 7. This should be equal to 23 and 30, 37 and so on lah. Right? Sampai cukup 10 lah. So basically that is the procedure of selecting a system using a systematic sampling techniques. And let's say you don't have a full sampling frame. So how are you going to do that? It's also work with the systematic sampling techniques. For example, let's say you have you work at McDonald's. You want to know, you go to the McDonald's. You want to give a questionnaire to those who line up. Sekarang tak ada line up kan? Tak boleh, bad example. Let's say apa yang beratur sekarang? Tak kisahlah apa point kan. Yang let's say at convenience store kan, people who enter at convenience store, you know that in one day there are 1,000 people enter to convenience store at one day, for example, in average. So you want to select 10 respondent. Let's say you want to select 100 lah, 100 sample size. Your sample size is 100. This is a capital N, right? So K should be 1,000 divided by 100 equal to 10. So you tunggu depan kedai convenience store tu. Once dia open the store, you tunggu, you menggunakan random number. Let's say kita ambil dekat sini lah, kita ambil dua numbers, 1 until 10 kan. So kita ambil daripada sini, for example. So you akan ambil nombor 5, for example. So you tunggu person number 5 to enter in the store, right? You akan bagi soalan nombor 5. And then the next person is person number 15. Selepas 15 orang, orang yang nombor 15 you akan bagi lagi. And then orang yang nombor 25 you akan bagi lagi. So you don't know the complete, you don't have a complete sampling frame, but you will distribute the questionnaire, right? You get your respondent based on the interval, right? So advantage is simple and easy to draw a sample, cheaper than SRS. Systematic sample can chosen much more speedily, very fast to select the sample. May result a systematic bias because only the first sampling unit is randomized, right? The next is not randomized. May result unrepresentative sample if the population is not homogeneous, right? If you have groups of people, then it's not representative lah. Next, kita nak tengok cluster. We skip cluster for a while. Kita tengok stratified dulu. And then after stratified, we go to cluster. Right. Any questions so far? If you don't have question, then we proceed to classify dulu. So stratified sampling techniques. Listen carefully. This is very important sampling techniques. In this sampling technique, the population is first divided into subgroup known as strata. So in this example, let's say in this sampling technique used when you have a group of comparison. For example, you want to study satisfaction of coefficient provider, right? You want to study a satisfaction of service in cafe service among UiTM student kan, in TAPA. So let's say you divide your group to, let's say, 3 faculty, right? 3 faculty. For first faculty is faculty of account, another one is FSKM CS, and one is applied science, right? So the whole population is 5,000. This is the total population. So for example, faculty of account, you have capital N A, account is, let's say, 2,000. Capital N CS is 1,000. Capital N S should be equal to 2,000, for example. So you have 3 groups here. right? So when you have a tree group, this group known as strata, right? Known as strata. Within each stratum, the element are homogeneous. Within each stratum, maksudnya di dalam stratum ni, dalam setiap satu stratum, dalam stratum sendiri, ini adalah karakteristik dia sama. This is a same characteristic within each stratum. Dalam setiap satu stratum ni, di antara between the strata, the characteristic is heterogeneous. It's not the same because the FP is the accountancy school, CS is a CS school, science is applied science school. So it's a different characteristics. So the procedure are, first is we divide the population into homogeneous strata. So we divide into 3 groups. Second step is we list down all the element in each stratum. Maksudnya the first strata, we need to have a complete list of member, right? Means that we need to have a sampling frame. So 1 until 2000. For this one also we need to have a complete sampling frame 1 until 1000. And this one also same lah. 1 until 2000. We need to have a sampling frame for each strata, right? And then we need to decide what is our sample size. So let's say our sample size is equal to 100, right? So 100 is the total sample size for the 3 group. So for first group, it should be 2,100 divided by 2,000 multiply with 100%. Tak payah divide by 100% lah. Divide by, multiply with 100. Salah. It should be, I make color lain. Okay, it should be 2,000 divided by 5,000 multiply with 100. So you will get the total sample size for an account. For CS and CS should be 1,000. This is a sample. This is a total population in the CS divided by total population in the whole population multiply with 100. For this one, and as applied science, it should be 2,000 divided by 5,000 multiply with 100. So you will get the sample size. So what is the sample size here? Should be 2,000 divided by 5,000 multiply with 100. So this one should be 40. This was also equal to 40, right? And this one should be equal to 20 lah, right? Boleh? So all together will be n equal to 100. So you will select the respondent from 1,000 from account ni, you akan select daripada 2,000 ni, you akan select 40 saja, 1 until 40 from the sampling frame. Sama juga untuk CS and applied science. So this one you akan select 20, this one you select 40, right? So all together are 100. So this is the procedure. You need to understand the procedure, and when the question asks you, explain the procedure. I don't want you to write an essay. I don't want you to write an essay. You just write the point. The first step, you need to divide the group into strata. Second step, list down all the element. Apa element dia? You kena based on the context, right? Bukan copy ayat buku, right? I tengok notice banyak student-student yang fail last semester. They copy daripada buku, right? Ayat general. I don't want the general part. You need to base on the context of the problem yang soalan tu tanya. And then you need to calculate the sample size for each for each apa nama strata, nampak tak ni how they calculate sample size. You need to put in table lah, put in table, nice table, right? So this is how we calculate the sample size. So advantage certified sampling techniques can represent the population since the from each stratum are representative lah. Precision is improved, right? The disadvantage is very expensive, require accurate information on proportion of each stratum. You need to know the detailed information for each group lah. Sometimes if certified lists are not available, they can be costly lah. So basically, certified sampling method is suitable when you have a small population member, population size. When you have a small population size, then certified sampling techniques is suitable. When you have a large population size, right? When you have a large population size, we should go for cluster sampling techniques. Cluster sampling techniques are same procedure as certified sampling techniques. First, we divide the population into subgroup, into heterogeneous cluster. Maksudnya subgroup lah. Subgroup ni kita tak panggil strata, we call as cluster. For example, let's say Perak Tengah District. Oh, tak payah Perak Tengah District lah. We take the whole Perak, Perak State lah, right? So let's say that in Perak State, for example lah, just for illustration, so you have, let's say, 5 districts, right? Basically we have more than that kan, 5 districts. So this is district A, B, C, D, and E, right? In each district we have village ke, we have town ke, right? So let's say kita letak sebagai village lah macam ni. Okay, example dah ada, right? So we have district A until F. This is 6 districts. So cluster N cluster equal to 6. Setiap district ni adalah different characteristic. Means that's why we call as heterogeneous cluster, different cluster. And each cluster, within each cluster, they have homogeneous characteristic. Right? Same situation as certified sampling techniques. But in this case, we have a larger population. Right? So now, in cluster sampling techniques, we're going to select randomly how many clusters, right? From 6, right? Let's say from 6 cluster, you want to select 2 cluster out of 6 cluster, right? Different with certified sampling techniques. Certified sampling technique, we measure all the strata, all the groups. We are measuring all the groups. But for cluster sampling techniques, we are not taking all cluster. We are just taking portion of the cluster. Let's say we have 6 cluster, we select 2 cluster randomly. We use a simple random sampling to select 2 cluster out of 6 cluster. So in this selected cluster, let's say cluster 1, this is cluster 2 and cluster 5. We're selecting cluster 2 and cluster 5. And in cluster 2, there are 10 village. In cluster 5, we have 10 village. Right? And we know from here, in these districts, we have n equal to, let's say, 10,000 residents. And this one, we have n equal to 15,000 residents. Right? So step number 3, we take census for each of the selected cluster. census means that we take all members in the population, right? We take all members in the cluster. So 10,000, we select all. 10,000 we measure as our respondent. This one 15,000, we select all members in district E as our sample. So this is the procedure of cluster. So can you differentiate between cluster and stratified? Stratified, we measure all group. It is suitable when you have a very small population. When you have very large population, then you're going to use cluster. The difference between cluster and stratified, cluster utilize census. Maksudnya kita measure all member in the selected cluster. Okay? Boleh? So this is about cluster. Multi-stage. Multi-stage maksudnya, let's say we have two cluster. We already selected two cluster. So in each cluster we have 10 village, right? So let's say in out of 10 village, we're going to select 3 village out of 10 village. We're going to use a simple random sampling to select 3 village out of 10 village. And then we take census. Sama macam cluster juga, we take census. Tapi kita narrow down lagi, kita turun lagi. Kalau let's say kita tak boleh nak cope with the 3 village, let's say 3 village still large, we don't have money, we don't have labor or manpower to collect the data. So we can narrow down lagi. Setiap village maybe ada jalan, right? Nama jalan kan. So we select type of street mana, and we take census for that jalan. Okay? So that is a multi-stage. Multi-stage mean kita turun lagi ke bawah lah. Okay, any questions so far? I think that's all. Let's try to do one question, right? Exercise 2. So, identify the most appropriate sampling techniques for each of the following cases. So, a manager selected every 5 employee from the list of 150 employees. So, we already know this one is, this is what type of sampling techniques? Selecting 5 employees out of 550. Ini sampling teknik apa? It's a systematic sampling techniques lah, right? So this is a systematic sampling techniques. So a lecturer select 50 students from 200 students by making a random withdrawal. So dia nampak tak ada keyword dekat sini, dia dah bagi random withdrawal. So when the problem says they are selecting respondent using a random, so the word random is there. So kita boleh limit our scope here. We will focus on probabilistic sampling technique, right? So we have SRS, we have systematic, we have stratified, and cluster, and multi-stage, right? So by making random withdrawal of 50 cards one time from a box containing 200 cards representing 200 students. So this one is very simple. Apa dia? This is a simple random sampling. Remember dalam final exam, dalam test, just put the complete word. Simple random sampling. Now, C, 10 group of students are randomly selected. So, dia kata kasi 10 group of students are randomly selected and a survey on students' learning style is made of all students in the group selected. So this one apa? Baru saja aja. Dia ada 10 groups, right? Setiap group tu dia ambil semua orang. What is this? Batrisha? It should be cluster lah. It should be cluster sampling techniques. Right. 20 students from each of 10 program are randomly selected. So this one very simple. We have 10 program, 10 groups. We select 20 from each group. Right. And the word random is there. So what kind of sampling techniques here? Yes? Tak berapa dengar. It should be stratified. Stratified sampling techniques lah. Right? A reporter interviewed 10 passengers in the bus for their opinion about safety of public transport. So this is apa? Dia interview dalam 10 passenger, 10 respondent in the bus. Dia tak ada word random kat sini kan? Bila tak ada word random kat sini, can be either probabilistic or non-probabilistic lah. But obviously, they select 10 passengers. So this one should be apa? Either convenient, judgmental, quota or snowball. It should be Batrisha apa dia? It should be convenience, right? Convenience, right? So I think that's all. So before we end, try to look at this first question dulu. This is all the final exam question kan? Right, kita tengok question number 1 dulu. A study conducted to investigate the factor that affect customer loyalty towards mobile phone network operator in Malaysia. A random sample of 1,000 mobile phone user was selected and set a questionnaire was mailed to each user. Right, questionnaire, set of questionnaire. So among the information collected in the were gender, type of service, age, company of network operator, satisfaction towards network coverage, and very satisfied, and so on. Subscription length, how in months, right? So based on the statement, state the population of for the above study. So what is the population? All, dia mesti ada word all kan? All customer, all mobile phone user, right? All mobile phone user, right? Sebab dia nak select, dia tak kisah dia ambil random sample of 1,000 mobile phone user, right? And dia tak ada dekat, dia bukan dia ambil dekat mana-mana ni kan? So towards network operator in Malaysia. So all mobile phone user lah. So B, does study involve primary or secondary data? They use a questionnaire. So questionnaire is apa? Tadi baru saya cakap. It's a primary data, right? Give reason to answer to support your answer because they collect the data using questionnaire lah. Name any 3 variable from the above study, for each chosen, state its types and most appropriate graphical presentation. So, kita ada, dia ada apa kat sini? Dia bagi kat sini, gender, type of service, age, company network operator, satisfaction, and subscription length. So, kita letak berapa nak letak? 3 kan? One is gender. Gender is qualitative. Right, qualitative, it can be nominal scale. Right. Another one is type of service. Type of service is also a qualitative nominal. Right. And number 3, we have subscription length. Subscription length in month. So this one should be continuous quantity or discrete quantities. In month kan, total month kita tak sebut, selalunya kita tak sebut 1.2 months, right? Kita sebut 1 month, 2 month, 3 month and so on lah. How many months kan? So this is a discrete quantitative. So is a ratio scale, right? Graphical representation kita tak belajar lagi in the next topic, right? Okay, I think that's all. You boleh copy dulu or screenshot this question number 2. Please screenshot or copy and try to answer by yourself as an exercise. Question number 2 sudah? I nak bagi lagi soalan. Sudah? Question number 3. A screenshot is better than capture from phone. Right. Question number 4. Right. And question number 5. 5 and 6 lah. 5. Sudah? And 6. Oops. 6. Right. I think that's all. Ada soalan tak before we end our session? If you don't have question, then I think that's all. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.